Live, up and down the coast, from the beaches to the valleys, your news channel starts right now.
Hi, and good Saturday evening to you. I'm Dave Alley, filling in for Tracy Lair. The job at Vandenberg, it is all done. Earlier today, the last Delta IV rocket launch took off today from Vandenberg Space Force Base. Spy Satellite Agency for the United States says the National Reconnaissance Office placed a top-secret spacecraft with the rocket. The new spacecraft will provide another tool for NRO as the nation's eyes and ears in space. And now it's on to its next mission. Now here locally, News Channel reporter Christina Rodriguez, she was out there in the area speaking to spectators who traveled all across the state to watch the historic launch.
The Delta rockets have been launching from Vandenberg since 1959, and this was the last launch.
It's exciting to see a Delta IV Heavy. I hear it's loud, I hear there's a lot of vibration, and the weather looks perfect today.
People traveled from Northern and Southern California to witness space history.
I think everybody's excited. I mean, the community is buzzing about the launch. You see the cars driving into Vandenberg.
The Delta IV launch will be the last heavy rocket launch on the West Coast.
ULA's path forward is they're moving away from some of their older legacy rockets and moving into the future. So it's really cool to see, the space industry kind of like step up and push harder into the future.
Other people say they are excited to see the new lightweight rockets launch that will replace the Delta IV.
I don't think a lot of people know that rockets take off from, not too far away from Southern California. So I think it's cool when people are interested in space and interested in coming up and seeing how a launch goes off.
In Vandenberg, I'm News Channel reporter Christina Rodriguez.
Meantime, in Florida, Spacex launched 52 Starling satellites into low Earth orbit. The launch from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida was the fourth flight for the Falcon 9 first stage booster. Starlink is a space-based system that SpaceX is building to bring internet access to underserved areas of the world. Following stage separation, the first stage returned back to Earth, landing on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. And back here locally, Isla Vista Recreation and Park District held its second annual Music in the Park concert series earlier today. News Channel reporter Mina Wahab, she was there and she tuned in to see how music made UCSB students feel connected.
Bill Tran's passion for music started at a young age.
Something about music just like connects with people like internally. I don't know, it's like one of the purest forms of expression that like humans participate in. So I love music for that reason.
It was this love of music that led him to found the UCSB Sound Society, a music production club that teaches its members how to record, produce, and mix and master their own music. Today was the first time that many of the musicians from the UCSB Sound Society performed on stage in front of a live audience, thanks to the second annual Music in the Park concert series.
There's some really talented musicians in Isla Vista, and they deserve to have a stage with a professional sound system and, be able to showcase their talents.
These musicians sang about everything as heavy as heartbreak to lighthearted topics like their love of waffles.
First he was talking about like a girl and stuff like that, and I was like, this is so cute. And then he started talking about waffles. And it was just funny. It was a good transition. Like, you can tell that this guy really he feels what he feels about girls and waffles.
Most of the attendees were engaged and fully present, whether they were watching the musicians perform or whether they were participating in the different art stations, ranging from tie-dyeing t-shirts to making bracelets.
Honestly, like me and my friend, we actually didn't bring our phones, so that helped a lot, I guess.
There will be plenty more opportunities for visitors to immerse themselves in these weekly Saturday events, as this fall Concert in the Park series will continue until October 8th. In Isla Vista, I'm News Channel reporter Mina Wahab.
Shawn Quien now in our first alert weather center. Shawn, great day to have a music festival.
Absolutely beautiful weather. Of course, it is fall. Some of our best weather happens this time of year. And this is our latest heat wave, and I decided to pull way back so we can kind of do a little bit of an analysis, maybe a comparison with the heat wave we had in the beginning of September, which was really widespread, no nook or cranny anywhere across the West was absent from that heat wave. This one's a little different. You can see areas like the Sierra, of course, really cool up there. Now the valleys, of course, really warm, but out by our beaches, look at this. We're only into the 60s and maybe getting close to 70. So this heat wave, again, doesn't have the sort of the armor that the last one had. In fact, when we get a little bit closer, we can see that even our inland areas, I remember just what was a few weeks ago, we had near 80-degree weather in many areas just off the sand all the way till about midnight. So again, we're looking pretty good across the region, actually showing some really good temperatures. Now there are advisories, though, for more heat, especially as we go from Monday to Tuesday, and that will be in areas of Ventura County and then down into Southern California. And that means that the inland areas, especially once you get away from the sand, will likely be well above normal. So when I come back, we'll talk about how that will end, and then we'll talk about what's to be expected as we go from September to October. Dave?
All right, we'll see you soon, Shawn. Your Health Now, an up-to-date COVID-19 booster shot is now available. The updated booster is set to target both the original and newer variants of the COVID-19 virus. Its availability comes ahead of the fall and winter months, where many are expected to gather together indoors for the holidays. Dr. Erica Pon says getting your booster and flu shot both together, it's vital for your protection. Dr. Pon is also recommending getting a booster shot 3 months after an infection and 2 months after your last dose. A volatile week on Wall Street following the 5th interest rate hike from the Federal Reserve so far this year. Now, some investors are worried, and also some economists as well, concerned about a global recession that could be looming. Michael George now has the details.
When the closing bell rang Friday, the news wasn't good. The Dow dropped 486 points to its lowest level since late 2020. All this as inflation is hurting Americans at every turn.
Inflation, gas prices, fuel, it's all up.
Since last year, new car prices are up 10%, food is up 8%, and electricity up 15%. While oil prices fell to an 8-month low and gas prices have dropped in recent months, they're still too high for Maryland Park in San Mateo, California.
It makes me think twice before I drive out of the way.
In Pinellas, Florida, graphic designer David Zidlick says his rent rose so much he had to give up his home. Now he lives in a tent set up as a temporary shelter.
Literally, a short conversation on a Sunday afternoon completely changed my life.
The Federal Reserve hiked interest rates again this week in an effort to cut inflation by slowing the economy. But that also means higher credit card interest and mortgage rates. D.C. realtor Tiffany Renwick says she's seeing lower-income Americans look for alternatives.
People are actually looking at sharing homes. I've seen a lot of people go back to, the roommate layout, and sometimes that's exactly where you are.
And holiday travel is also expected to cost more this year. Even though it's early, experts say you may want to book now before prices rise even higher. Michael George, Wall Street.
Around the world now, in Iran, protests there, they are spreading across the country over the death of a 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman who died while in police custody. Her alleged offense was violating the Islamic Republic's strict dress code of not wearing a hijab properly. Officials say many protesters and police have been killed since those protests first broke out, and Iran continues to crack down on restrictions on the internet and social media access as well. Ryan Chilcote is following this story in London.
It's been 1 week since the funeral of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old Iranian woman who died in police custody after being detained by Iran's morality police, and the protests in that country are showing no signs of letting up. We now have demonstrations in more than 12 Iranian cities, increasingly violent clashes between the government on the one side and the protesters. State media say the death toll could be as high as 35. The AP has confirmed at least 11 deaths since the protests began. Mahsa Amini was detained for allegedly wearing her hijab too loosely. The hijab, of course, the headscarf all women have been mandated to wear in Iran since the Islamic Revolution in 1979. The UN says they have information the police used a baton to hit Amini on the head and banged her head against a car during the detention. The authorities in Iran say she had a heart attack but hadn't been harmed, something her family disputes. Protests have even spilled over Iran's borders. Demonstrators gathered in Iraq, chanting women, life, freedom, while holding pictures of Amini. And in Berlin, protesters gathered Friday condemning the Iranian authorities and demanding Western governments keep up the pressure on Tehran. This is the worst political violence in the Islamic Republic in the last 3 years, when protesters clashed with the government and hundreds were killed over the then rising price of fuel. Protesters this time say that if the pressure isn't maintained on Tehran to not use violence to put down these protests, then these protests too will be crushed. In London, Ryan Chilcote, Fox News.
Coming up after the break, Buellton holds its own Oktoberfest. It's called Figtoberfest. We'll tell you all about that. That's next on your news channel, live at 10. In Buellton today, locals there, they held their own Oktoberfest. It's a little bit different, though. It's called Figtoberfest, taking place at the Figueroa Mountain Brewing Company there in Buellton. Now, among the festivities, it was a busy day there. Beer pong had a tournament with that. Pretzel eating contest there. And keg holding, they held a contest to see who can hold up a keg, as we see right there, the longest above their head. Now, the festival also had a yodeling contest to see who perhaps could be the next Bavarian idol, suppose. We'll bring an idol in right now of some sorts. It's Shawn Quien. He's standing by in our first alert weather center. Hi, Shawn.
Definitely not going to yodel. All right, let's go ahead and look at our temperatures today. And as I tried to mention at the beginning of the show, heat wave across the west. This one has some variations, at least some nice variations as far as Pismo Beach today. On the cool side, actually, only 64 degrees. Santa Maria, you were at 71. And that is actually below average, although the next couple of days, probably going to go at least slightly above average, as we do expect to see this heat wave sort of expand across the area. But I pretty much can guarantee that 103 will not be challenged, or at least whatever the record high will be tomorrow in the next couple of days. Right now, a lot of widespread 50s out there. The only exception, some 60s along the south coast. Still warm inland like we expect. And then Gaviota, you have a 77 with a very dry sky. Everybody else along the beaches, more than likely we'll see some more patchy clouds, and some areas are already getting that. Gaviota, though, you're the exception at 25%, and that's because of a slight northwest or north wind in that part of the world. You get that downsloping, and it dries out the atmosphere, and of course also can really warm it up. And boy, an area that would love to have it, an offshore wind and some dry conditions, will be the area in Nova Scotia. They have just been absolutely walloped by Fiona and super high tides. They normally get a big tide swing, and the tides up there can run somewhere above 30 feet on the swing, and it happened to coincide a high tide with the Fiona's arrival, and now they have just massive flooding. And we're also, of course, keeping an eye down in the Caribbean. This is Ian. We have to watch Ian very, very closely. Whenever a storm forms in the Caribbean and or the Gulf, you know somebody's going to have to take this, and it looks like areas between Cancun, the Yucatan, and Cuba, and then, of course, into the Gulf. We've watched our weather computers, and right now the track has it going up to a Category 3, maybe a 4, a lot of warm water, and that means that this system is going to have a big punch and possibly hitting around Tampa and maybe up toward Pensacola. We look at our computer, we have the what we call the spaghetti plots, and that's all of our weather computers come together, and we try to see which models, where they're going to all sort of join in and say where it's going to go, and the vast majority have it going just like that. You can see all those tracks right there. All the computer software saying that's where it's going to go. So over the next several days, we're going to be hearing a lot about Ian. Big area of high pressure across the west. Definitely holding firm. Again, though, we have just enough onshore flow that you can see right there that the sort of gray clouds, heavier clouds well to our north, that will help to cool everybody down in the next several days. But right now, still have the fog, and that means that the marine layer is holding, so that means we get to continue to see some decent, really mild, even cool weather right along the beaches. So there's your high temperature, there's your fog for your early Sunday, and then as we go towards Sunday night, see the marine layer coming back in, and then by Monday morning, another familiar pattern of fog across the region. And as far as temperatures, we'll warm things up definitely the next couple of days. Inland areas will probably be above that threshold of what is considered comfortable. And even look at Gaviota. Computer really likes the idea of seeing a north wind. Now, as we go to Monday, expect to see some further warming, and especially down into Southern California. Look at Gaviota again, the computer really biting at the idea that we'll have a north wind there. But then look at Santa Ynez, not too bad. Paso Robles, 94, definitely above where you want to be as we're sort of into fall. We kind of expect to really cool things off, but it is October, or soon will be, and we can have some of our best weather that time of year. So South Coast again for Sunday. All right, it will be a beautiful day across the board, very warm once you get away from the beaches and up into, say, the canyons and foothills, and anywhere off the sand, things start to get toasty. But along the beaches, 60s, 70s, more 70s than 60s, should be a nice day. Surf not overly large right now. We have a mixed swell out of the southwest and some northwest wind swell. And there's your 7-day forecast across the board, looking good. And look what happens on Wednesday. We start to cool things down. We bring in perhaps more of a stronger ocean influence, even though the computer is saying the cloud cover won't be overly thick. It will still be more or less onshore, meaning that everybody cools off, even the inland areas. So from Santa Barbara, Wednesday to Thursday, a nice drop there. Santa Ynez, same story, and then a really nice weekend ahead as we go toward October. And I think October is on Saturday, if my calendar knowledge serves me correct. Dave?
All right, some warm temperatures, though, for October to ring that in. We'll still ahead after the break. Sports, UCSB soccer, they hosted the 5th-ranked team in the country. We'll tell you how that turned out for the Gauchos, plus a record-breaking performance by Santa Barbara City College football today. You won't believe just how many points the Vaqueros scored. Trust me on this. That's coming up next on your news channel, live at 10. Time for sports. Big local soccer match tonight at Harder Stadium. UCSB taking on 5th-ranked Stanford. Gauchos coming in after a thrilling last-second win over Cal Poly, the rival Mustangs, on Wednesday. Stanford 15-6-3 all-time versus the Gauchos. Gauchos, though, got on the board fast just a couple of minutes into the game. Long pass by Timon Widish to Salvador Aguilar, the hero in that game against Cal Poly a couple nights ago, and he buries the shot. And the Gauchos out to a very quick 1-0 lead, but Stanford would equalize just a few minutes later, about the 16th minute here. Jackson Keel would tie up the game with the goal. 1-1 your game at the half. We go into the second half, just about 6 minutes into this one. Keegan Hughes off a corner kick. This one going to rattle around, and it is going to find the back of the net. That would turn out to be the go-ahead goal, the game winner. No other scoring in the game. Stanford beats UCSB 2-1. Gauchos look to rebound on Wednesday. They'll be home with UC San Diego. Junior college football now. Santa Barbara City College looking to extend its early season winning streak to 3 games. They were home today at beautiful La Playa Stadium, and they were taking on winless LA Southwest. This one never in doubt. First possession, actually first offensive play of the game. Little razzle-dazzle here as it's Damari Ward throwing it downfield to an absolutely wide open Chase Wells touchdown. Vaqueros would score early and often. Just a few minutes later, the running back Brandon Smith getting the ball, finding a hole, going into the end zone there, 14-0. A little bit later, a little pass here, and the Vaqueros would have some nice moves here, a little spin move at the 15-yard line. That would set up this play to their quarterback, Trenton Loera, would push this one across the goal line. That made it 21-0. Then there was a safety, first play of the second quarter, inside the 5. Caden Chen going to trot in for the score. Santa Barbara absolutely cruises. You'll see why here. They'll cruise to the win. There we go. This was an absolute boat race. Vaqueros poured on, winning this one 86-0. That's right, Sean. 86 points. Obliterates the team record for most points in a game. It was 63. Santa Barbara City College up next. They'll be on the road at Glendale next Saturday. Meantime, in Santa Maria, Hancock, the only team to beat Santa Barbara this year. They were hosting Fullerton. First quarter action here. Quarterback Josh Calvin for the Hornets. They're going to find Cameron Woods for the 30-yard strike. That put the Hornets up 14-0. Bulldogs in comeback mode. Second quarter, they would get their offense going. Zeke Storer hands off to Dior Kennedy. He goes right into the end zone, 4 yards out. Bulldogs on the board, down 14-6 at that point. That was your score at the half. Move on to the second half, third quarter. Calvin's pass here going to be picked off by Hancock as Cyree Lewis going to get the ball, going to return it back to the 30-yard line, and a few plays later, Hancock would take advantage of the turnover as it's Raymond Paulo going to take it into the house for the score. And the Bulldogs get back into the game, but they would end up losing this one 28 to 20 as the Bulldogs dropped to 3-2 on the season. Bulldogs will travel down to Mount Sac next Saturday. Baseball now, Dodgers and Cardinals back on the field tonight. A little bit less drama. Actually, we're going to do some football right now. This is UCLA taking on Colorado. UCLA, they would score early and often, and the Bruins end up beating the Buffaloes 45-17. And for UCLA, get a load of this. They have won 7 straight games. Had to do the Bruins. A game that just went final not that long ago. USC beat Oregon State on a last-minute touchdown. USC still looking good on the early portion of the season. Now we'll talk baseball here. Dodgers, there we go. Dodgers on the field. A little bit less drama than we saw last night when Albert Pujols hit home run number 699 and 700, the historic 7th home run hit at Dodger Stadium. Tonight, LA sending out their own future Hall of Famer, Clayton Kershaw. No Pujols home runs tonight, but plenty of power on display. Dodgers hitting the long ball tonight, starting with Will Smith in the first. Trace Thompson would follow suit with a home run in the second inning. Then rookie Miguel Vargas would connect for his first career home run. He's now just 699 behind Pujols. Dodgers go on to win this one 6-2. Other California results, the Padres and A's both win, while the Angels and Giants both lose. That's a look at sports. We're going to be right back after the break. The biggest celebration on the Goleta Coast began today. The sounds of the return of the Goleta Lemon Festival, where a lot of people gather today, and rightly so. They did all sorts of things, all lemon-centric, eating lemon pie, lemon beer, of course, having lemonade from a lemonade stand. What's better than that on a hot day? There was also endless rides and games such as archery tag, inflatable bubbles, obstacle courses, and the kids had all sorts of fun after a 2-year hiatus. All locals and everyone out there at the Lemon Festival had a great time. Thanks for joining us here. We'll be back at 11 o'clock on News Channel 12 and 3. Have a great night.